2 months after I started this channel, I downloaded the game Clock Tower. It's a classic survival horror game released for the Super Famicom all the way back in 1995, and it never got an English translation. As of today, it's been 2 whole years since I started posting videos, and I still have not touched it. I waited so long that they finally released an official translation after almost 30 years. But now is the time. I, a dumb idiot with a computer and a weird hobby, am finally going to play this game. First and foremost, I'm going to be playing the remake Clock Tower Rewind. Not only is it the only official translation, it appears to be really faithful to the original release. From what I can tell, the visuals are untouched, excluding a really well-made animated opening and the menus. I will admit the menus are really jarring since they're so high resolution and out of place, but I think it's worth it to be able to officially support a series like this. I've heard a lot of people speak positively about Clock Tower in the past, and I know it was successful enough to spawn several sequels, but I'm worried about how dated it is. Alone in the Dark was released only a few years prior, and that game was a nightmare to complete. If Clock Tower has similar gameplay and puzzles, I'm in for a rough ride. But there's really only one way to find out. The very first thing I encountered upon booting up the game was a notice to plug in a controller. This game was designed to be played with one of these bad boys, and while it has mouse support, we gotta be authentic here. I have to get into the mindset of a terrified Japanese child whose parents bought them the silly murder game without looking too far into it. See what I mean? I'm gonna be traumatized forever by this level of vulgarity. Thanks, fictional irresponsible parents that I just made up. The premise here is fairly simple. Jennifer and 3 of her friends are all orphans that get adopted by the same person. They're escorted to this mansion on foot by a woman named Mary. I am so glad they left the visuals the same. It's so charming. The pixel art is super high quality and ominous, and it immersed me in the game really quickly. This was immediately stopped by this giant freaking notification. You cannot close it as far as I can tell, and it takes up a good 70% of the screen. This could so easily have been a little notification in the corner, but instead we get a giant box that covers up the dialogue. These appear a few times throughout the game, but I tried my best to ignore them. The girls get left in the hall by Mary, but they grow impatient after a mind-numbing 20 entire seconds, so they send Jennifer off to search for her. She leaves, there's a scream from the room behind her where her friends are, and she returns to find all of them missing. It's time for the spooks. The game's controls seemed kinda weird to me at first, but after playing for a bit, it actually became shockingly intuitive. The game is a side-scroller with movement controlled using the bumpers. The D-pad is for controlling your cursor, and the face buttons are all for interacting with the world around you. To interact with doors or go up staircases in the background, you have to highlight them with your cursor and then click. I'm really happy that movement works this way, since chase scenes would probably have been a nightmare when worrying about janky old-school hitboxes. This way you can just hold one button and keep an eye on your surroundings to look for a way out. The game doesn't really give you a clear goal at this point, so I just kinda started around exploring. Found some destroyed rooms, got strangled through a mirror, found a screaming death parrot, and even stumbled across the steam-filled bathroom. Jennifer scuttles on over, yanking open the curtain and finding one of her friends suspended from the ceiling by some ropes.
Oh.
I'm sure this would have been a lot scarier without the notification covering my entire screen. This here is the Scissorman, a short, deformed dude walking around with a giant pair of shears and preparing to give Jennifer the snipping of her life. These chase sequences can happen just about anywhere, with some of them being randomized and some of them being scripted. You cannot run from him. There are 2 options. Wander around until you find an event that prevents him from getting to you, or find a hiding spot. If he catches you, you can press a button called the panic button to try and fend him off, but it takes up a ton of your stamina. Your stamina bar is essentially your health bar, and encountering danger when it's low is a death sentence. Your best bet is to find a place to sit down and recover your energy. The Scissorman is pretty slow for the most part, so I found myself taking breaks mid-chase just to be safe. I didn't know a dang thing about how these chases worked when this happened, so I ended up sprinting to the right, climbing the stairs, getting shivved, trying again, almost getting hit by a falling chandelier, attempting to get it to land on his head during the next run, watching as it didn't fall this time because f*** me I guess, and getting shivved one last time. With no other options, I sprinted as far as I could in one direction until I found this shovel. Never underestimate the power of the head clonk, little boy. Oh, come on! I ended up sprinting into a random hallway, tripping a bunch of times, having this floor collapse beneath me, and barely dragging myself to safety. This section really could have benefited from a tutorial of some kind beforehand that would teach you what your options are. It's cool and all that you get to panic and try out some new things to see what works, but having no direction at all just became frustrating for me. Even a little text box telling you to look for a hiding spot would have been enough to give me an idea of what to do instead of just hopelessly sprinting around. With the Scissorman gone for now and Jennifer trapped on the other side of the building because of a collapsed floor, my only option was to get back to exploring. I learned pretty quickly as I examined the rooms around me that I am not a fan of how this cursor works. There's a hyper-specific point on each interactable item that you need to hover over to interact with it, and finding that point using the D-pad is way harder than I expected. There is an auto-locking system, and it only works half the time. The other half the time, you're trying to scroll to something else and it auto-locks on what you don't want to click. Stuff like this can create some tension during chase scenes since you have to fiddle with the controller when a murderer is closing in on you, but it makes it feel like your deaths aren't your fault, which is really frustrating. On the right side of this floor, there's a gap that Jennifer isn't able to clear, but a long wooden plank is sitting directly next to it. After fighting the cursor for a bit, I examined it with the hopes of using it to cross the gap, but Jennifer just kept looking at the plank and giving highly advanced observations like, it's just lumber. You actually can use the plank for that, but it's programmed in a very specific way. To perform certain actions, you have to look at the problem and then the solution in quick succession. That means looking at the hole in the floor, then quickly looking at the plank. Then Jennifer moves it. If you look at just the plank, just the hole, or the plank, then the hole, nothing will happen. It has to be the problem and then the solution in that order. This isn't bad once you figure it out, but my tiny little monkey brain did not comprehend that for quite a while, so I left the gap without a way to cross. Downstairs there's a music room with a playable piano. I know we're in a really dangerous mansion with a murderer on the loose and no friends to support us, but I cannot in good conscience pass up some jam time.
Tap danced across the piano.
The building is fairly easily loopable once you learn the layout, so I started booking it as far away as I could in the hopes of finding something to stop the Scissorman. When I got back to the hole in the floor with the nearby board, Jennifer actually took control away from me. This happened with the shovel too, with the character making a move to escape without any input from me. She jumped over the hole with the Scissorman falling close behind. Thankfully, those scissors add just enough to his weight that the floor collapses further beneath him, leaving Jennifer safe and sound. I'm actually a really big fan of these escape methods. They keep getting more interesting. It adds a lot more flavor to the chases than just finding a spot to hide and hunkering down until he decides to leave. It's a more action-packed and unique way to handle the situation. Odd methodology aside, we're finally on the other side of that gap, so let's get exploring. There's two things on this side of the gap, a suspiciously painted section of wall and a door. The new room has a rope inside that can be used to get back down since the gap is too big to jump now, but there's not much that can be done about the suspicious wall. Another section of wall has been painted over in the corner, but it's blocked off by this cart that Jennifer refuses to move no matter how many times I examine it. I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall with some of these puzzles. It's like no matter how much effort I put in, even if I seem to be doing the correct thing, I'm getting little to no results. That's how I used to feel trying to get my phone number off a scammer's text list, but that changed thanks to this video's sponsor, Incogni. My data used to be absolutely everywhere online, and that's because of data brokers. Data brokers steal and make money by selling your browsing habits, email address, home address, phone number, and all kinds of other personal information. That's one of the largest causes of spam texts and emails. Over the last few months, I've been hearing a lot of friends and classmates complaining about getting scam texts claiming that they have unpaid toll fees. It's gotten bad enough that I've seen billboards off the side of the highway warning people that this is a scam, but you know who hasn't gotten a single one? Me. People can't send those messages if they don't have a place to send it to. You have the legal right to have these brokers erase all the data that they've collected on you. Finding your data and submitting removal requests is a long and arduous process that can take years, but with Incogni, you don't have to do it by yourself. During the time I've used Incogni, it's identified my data from 307 different sources, successfully removing it from 267 so far, and 80 of those removals came within the first 48 hours. That's over 200 hours of work over the last 6 months that I completely avoided. Incogni even gives you a detailed view of each each company that had your data, so you can see what each company does and how high of a security threat they are. You can see all the in-progress requests and how long on average it takes to remove your data from each specific source. Incogni is always checking for your information, meaning when it detects your personal details with a new data broker, they take the necessary steps to stop them from using and selling your info. You aren't just safe from companies that have your data right now, you're safe from the ones that'll attempt to get it in the future. Incogni removes you from the data broker sales loop. If you've been following this channel for a while, you've probably heard me talk about how much I value online privacy. I have an associate's degree in cybersecurity, and I'm graduating with my bachelor's in May. Security's kinda my whole thing. As a faceless creator, it needs to be. That's why this service is so important to me. I don't want people knowing and profiting off of my personal information, and I'm sure you don't want that either. Please protect yourself and your privacy by going to incogni.com/benagain and using code benagain to get an exclusive offer of 60% off an annual plan. That is an incredible discount for an invaluable service. That's incogni.com/benagain using code benagain. Stay safe out there. You may have noticed a trend at this point. There is still no direction. What am I supposed to be doing right now? So far, the only thing I can reliably do is explore some rooms, find Jack Diddley inside, get chased by the Scissorman, run around like a chicken with its head cut off, sometimes actually get my head cut off because of his giant murder shears, and then sometimes escape him by sheer luck. What is my goal? Find my friends, escape the house, unravel the mystery behind this murderer? I'm completely lost, and the lack of direction is making it difficult for me to get into this game. There's no plot to grab my attention, just sequences randomly strung together. That so far is the biggest weakness of this game, not the dated controls, or the odd dialogue, or the weird puzzle logic. You know what? Screw it. We're out of here. There was a car in the other building, right? Let's make our way over there and jumpstart it or something. Look, someone literally left the keys right next to it. Screw your friends, Jennifer. We're casting aside our morals through sheer video game boredom. Let's get out of here. Fine, I'll play the game. Back in the music room, Jennifer pulls back the curtains and finds this weird cane. Supposedly this is important for later, but I don't know how yet. I just have to keep exploring. Oh, come on!
Oh,
Why can't he leave me alone? I still hadn't figured out the hiding mechanic at this point, so the more times this little jerk showed up, the more frustrated I was becoming. I ended up just reloading my save because it was literally not worth the time. I looked around for 4 more seconds, found a library, got attacked again, then gave up and Googled what I was supposed to do. With the knowledge of the hiding mechanic unlocked, I hid underneath this nearby bed. Wanna know the worst part? I tried doing that in the room with the bird, but I was too slow. That led me to believe you couldn't hide under beds. On the bright side, we accidentally learned that the Scissorman's name is Bobby while trying to Google the hiding mechanic. God damn it, Bobby.
We need Kenny here with the Hank Hill impression.
Somebody text him now.
I got it.
My friend Kenny can do a really entertaining Hank Hill impression, and if anything will keep me sane during this game, it would be him saying God damn it, Bobby to Scissorman Bobby. The problem is he's at work.
Hey, Bestie, can you real quick send me a voice memo of you saying God damn it, Bobby in a Hank Hill impression? It's for science.
Hopefully we'll get a reply before beating the game. Now that I have a way to get the Scissorman off my tail, this will be my safe spot. No matter how far it is, I will run all the way back here if he chases me, because oh my god, it is the only reliable thing that I have. With this mechanic in my tool belt, I can actually explore the mansion without worry. I found some storage, a crack in the library wall that made some creepy groaning noises, and even a kitchen. I'm sure a nice mid-catastrophe snack wouldn't hurt anyone.
Oh no.
Bugs? Oh god.
Ew.
Extra protein, bro.
Oh my god! Apparently major scares like this will immediately put Jennifer's stamina into the red, leaving her highly vulnerable. Let's not go in there, I guess.
But the meats! It's like Arby's up in this bitch.
I don't want to go to Arby's. Even though we can fend off the Scissorman, we're still gonna have to be very cautious of other threats. At this point, I was pretty sure I had checked out every room in this mansion, meaning we were gonna have to do some backtracking. I figured the best place to start would be that really suspicious wall, and this time Jennifer was just able to move the cart out of the way. I have no idea why it wasn't possible earlier, but I'm just glad to have experienced some semblance of progression past finding a stick. Jennifer finds a nearby metal pipe and uses it to break down the suspicious looking wall. Inside is a corpse alongside 2 medical charts, one showing 2 newborns and one labeled with the name Mary Barrows. The only Mary I know is the lady who took us here and disappeared. According to Jennifer, she has the last name as the person who adopted everyone. Next to the corpse is a bag with a name embroidered on the inside: Walter Simpson. Apparently this is the name of Jennifer's father. I guess that means this corpse must be his. Jennifer examines the body, finding a paper clutched in one of its hands. It's a memo written by the man shortly before his passing. He was locked up in this room for 3 days, dying of dehydration. Before his death, he wanted to leave behind everything he knew about the twins who will bring calamity to this world, presumably the 2 newborns on that medical chart. Mr. Simpson was called to the house to deliver Mrs. Barrow's baby, but the children that were birthed were not normal. One literally bit off his hand as it exited the womb. Simpson doesn't believe they're going to make it since both children's bodies had yet to fully develop, but if they happen to still be alive, whoever is reading this note is to destroy them. His dying words are a final clue, stating that they sleep deeply in the cradle under the star. Why leave a clue as your dying wish instead of just instructions? Gameplay. More importantly, where was this kind of thing earlier? This is so freaking cool. I love this idea. The doctor getting his hand bitten off by a baby exiting the womb is the creepiest, most interesting concept here. It really proves that these kids are actual demons. And now we have a goal. We need to find the 2 twins and destroy them. I assume that Bobby is one of them, but who is the other? For now, Jennifer needs to find some more clues. We may know what we're up against to some degree, but that doesn't tell us how to deal with them. Unfortunately, the recording group was dwindling in numbers as it got later into the night. My friend Cyan had to go get some sleep, leaving just me and one other friend. Now it's our job to save the world, Minu.
Oh god, that's a lot of pressure.
It's fine. We're smart. We have
I dropped out of college. So, it's kind of resting on your shoulders, Ben. Mr. Almost Got a Degree man.
I actively chose to become a YouTuber. Do you think I'm smart?
We're so
Back on the first floor, Jennifer finds a creepy room full of mounted animal heads and several jarred blobs that look like organs. Touching one causes it to topple off the shelf, angering the mounted heads and causing what appears to be some kind of fetus in the middle of the jars to start pulsing. Ugh. That's cool and all, but there's still another less creepy looking half of the room to explore. In a seemingly innocuous closet on the left side of the room, we stumble across another corpse.
Oh, that's...
You're alive?
What the f***?
What is that thing? Is that literally just like a zombie? Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh my god!
What are the odds of that happening here?
Girl.
After juking Bobby with the same hiding spot for the billionth time, we headed back into the room with that zombie lady to try and take her out. There's a dagger sitting on a box in the bottom of the room that ends up being fairly effective, netting us a key. Jennifer returns to the second floor, entering a room with a clown doll inside. There's a key on its lap, but the doll does not appreciate us taking. It starts levitating around the room holding some kind of sharp object. It magically locks the doors and stabs us in the throat before we're even able to yank out the dagger from before. I was actually supposed to press the panic button there to knock the doll down and break its head off, which wasn't as difficult as I expected. I quickly ran back to the storage area, grabbed some insecticide and a black robe hidden behind a shelf, and used the former on the bugs in the kitchen to kill them and find another key. We can now unlock even more rooms to explore throughout the mansion and can hopefully progress the plot some more. The first key goes to a room on the second floor with Mary inside. I think it's Mary at least. It's a bit hard to tell with the notification in the way. She tells Jennifer that she's safe now before pulling out a kitchen knife and calmly walking towards her. Thankfully, using the power of logic, we can leave the room, then immediately re-enter it and find ourselves completely safe. The only thing in this entire room is another key on the table, so we're back to square one with the number of locked rooms. The second key opens up this cult room with a summoning circle and a bunch of candles and stuff scattered around. It's pretty much useless for right now, so we move to the third key, which unlocks this weird study with artwork on the wall. To see the mural in its entirety, Jennifer knocks down the shelf to get a better view. It seems to depict the room that we were literally just inside, so we'll have to head back there after this. The books on the desk in the corner talk about bringing time to a standstill by stopping the big clock at the clock tower, but there isn't much more information. We head back to the cult room and examine everything. The same exact book sits open on this altar thing, and Jennifer notices a square indent in the center of the summoning circle. There's one major difference between the mural and the room, other than all those demons. The vase in the image shows a stick of some kind sitting inside, not flowers. Jennifer yanks out the flowers and shoves her cane inside, causing the indent in the floor to open up and reveal a ladder leading beneath the mansion. The ladder goes down pretty far and it heads to this gigantic cavern. The same groans we were hearing in a crack in the library are even louder now, although getting to them will be tricky. A cloaked figure just walked past a guard dog, but if Jennifer tried to do that, she would get murdered. We need a disguise. Using the power of Mary's perfume and the black cloak from the storage room, Jennifer successfully disguises herself and sneaks past the dog unharmed. One of her other friends is actively dying in this candlelit area. Apparently you can save her by finding her in some kind of prison and freeing her earlier in the game, but I didn't manage to do that. The friend dies after telling Jennifer to go to the clock tower and hit the switches. It's fine. Jennifer's the most dangerous 14-year-old around. Let's go explore the caverns. To the right, Jennifer uses her epic parkour moves to traverse some platforms. Skirt be damned. A large red curtain sits at the end of the hall with a thing? A big purple lumpy man. Our new lumpy friend chases Jennifer back through the cave, through some water, and up a ramp. Jennifer tosses a jug of kerosene at the creature with it igniting after passing a torch. Rest in peace, my lumpy purple friend. You left as quickly as you came. Apparently this dude is the other twin Dan. They're clearly fraternal. Jennifer escapes using an elevator further in the cavern, but a pan back to Dan's corpse shows something crawling out from inside the goo. This isn't actually all that important for this game from what I can tell, since the character never shows up again. Maybe he's important for the other endings, but my assumption is that this is some kind of setup for the sequels. The elevator gives us access to the 3rd floor for the first time, which should be where the clock tower is. Jennifer runs out of the elevator being chased by Bobby somehow? Not totally sure how he got in there without being spotted, but I'm glad he's here, because Kenny sent us the requested voice memo.
God damn it, Robert.
Majestic. Jennifer climbs the tower and hits the switches just like her friend said. The sound from the now activated tower hurts Bobby so badly that he stumbles off the edge of the tower. Now we're finally safe. Just kidding. Mary is here and is pissed. We presumably just murdered her children, so I can't totally blame her. Thankfully, Jennifer has been hitting the gym, so she pushes Mary into the clock tower controls to be electrocuted to death. With everyone dead, Jennifer trots along to the balcony where she can dramatically stare out into the rainy night before the credits begin to roll. This is the B ending, 1 out of 9 possible endings that you can get to this game. They're ranked S through H, with S being the best and H being the worst. To give you an idea, the H ending was the one where I ditched everyone and stole the car. Despite a difficult start, I really enjoyed Clock Tower Rewind. Visually, it was incredibly faithful to the original game, so I feel as though I got the experience that I originally wanted when I downloaded that fan translation. The sprites and animations were all very fluid, and I loved the colors here. They really complemented the mood of the game alongside the general lack of music. By having a creepy environment with only footsteps breaching the silence, it makes the scares all the more startling. Any noise, no matter how small, can set you on edge. The gameplay itself was fun once I learned how everything worked, but stumbling around confused at the start was rough. I'm sure the manuals would have been hugely helpful in the past, but this is a re-release on modern hardware. There really needs to be a bit more than a basic control explanation right at the start. After googling some of the more confusing mechanics, I was able to get past the frustration and actually have a good amount of fun. There aren't a whole lot of puzzles in this game, with the majority of your time spent running and hiding, but the ones that were present were fairly well executed. Working with the janky cursor and the poorly optimized auto-locking system wasn't the greatest, but it was reliable enough to get me through the chase scenes mostly unscathed. The lack of direction at the start prevented me from getting invested until about halfway through my playthrough when I first found the story beats. I'm really curious how the sequels handled things, since they were on far less limited hardware. Maybe there'll be a smoother way to implement unobtrusive directions. The story was definitely a big selling point for me, since it's what got me interested in the first place. The execution isn't the most special thing, but it doesn't have to be. The concept alone was interesting enough to get me to finish the game, and it left a lot of questions fairly open-ended without leaving me frustrated. I definitely plan to go back and try to get the other endings just to see what else this game has to offer. I know there are entire sections of the map that I was never able to find, so the replay value is absolutely here. This is further enhanced by the fact that the room orders and many of the items are completely randomized. Despite my initial fears, I had a really good time with Clock Tower, and I'm definitely interested in checking out the sequels at some time in the future. I'd recommend you give this game a shot as well, since listening to me describe my own playthrough isn't nearly as immersive as playing it for yourself. I hope to see you all again. Have a great rest of your day.